So moved. Second.
Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No public comments? None, okay. The approval of the consent agenda has to do with the minutes of the regular board that we had on June 28th, and we noticed that we have these meetings quarterly. Are there any corrections to the minutes, or can I hear a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes of June 28th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, one abstain, 4 approvals and 1 abstention. There were no items removed from the consent agenda, and we have no action items, so we'll move to the HEC update. Rebecca.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, President Cervantes. Thank you all. I promise we will be quick this evening. Mostly the message for today will be we're just moving forward. We're just kind of keeping on. So in terms of, over here, would be helpful. Oh, you know what, Mason? I just made the joke about how easy it would be. Oh, thank you. So, basically, just in terms of, as I said, we're just moving forward with things as they are. Our current partners, of course, New Mexico Highlands continues to be an anchor partner. They continue to offer bachelor's and master's degrees. They're very excited. They continue to have growth in enrollment. I will take this opportunity to say very quickly, as some of you know, they were getting ready for their site visit from the Higher Learning Commission, which happened in November. I had the opportunity to be a part of that in all the relevant places, and we think it went really well. We feel really well. The verbal, informal feedback, of course, that we received from those who were visiting was all positive. So they really do feel like they were able to address everything that was in, I think it was 8 items in the letter that the Higher Learning Commission was looking at. Of course, it will take time for them to put together their formal response and see where we're at. And unfortunately, I did not have an opportunity to double check what that date would be. Again, we all felt very good. It was very positive. They had multiple pieces that included their main campus visits and center visits. And mostly, of course, I was involved in the center visits, including the Higher Education Center.
So this was for Highlands?
This was for Highlands. But again, they just are doing well. They continue to grow, and we're very excited. Northern New Mexico College, of course, has come in. They have started. They are also very excited. President Bailey has been an avid supporter, an enthusiastic supporter, spoke to the press on our behalf during an interview with the New Mexican that we had not too long ago, and so we're continuing to be very lucky. Of course, it's a little too early to start talking about where that's going exactly in terms of numbers. But again, we're just really excited, and it's all moving along. And of course, UNM continues to have a staff presence there, although they do not currently offer any classes on site.
Wait, just 1 second. So
Yes, ma'am.
on the Northern, those are 3 different bachelor's degrees?
Yeah, those are 3 different bachelor's degrees. Sorry.
And why does UNM have a person and they don't have any, what?
Because they've been, thank you for the question, Chair Member Single. So basically what they are looking at right now is they pulled all those courses that they used to offer on campus and shifted them to online. Those all became online cohort courses. So they still wanted, however, to keep someone there to be able to do advising, to help with registration questions, and to be able to continue to work with the community college and area high schools in some cases to do recruitment and dissemination of information regarding UNM.
And so they're not interested in any other degrees here at this moment?
We're currently in discussions to talk about bringing back public administration, but no, at this time, they're continuing to move forward with the plan that they put in place that had them, and again, just quick history, they had the branches and the centers. They closed down all their centers and moved all those programs to online programs. They did that based on research and feedback that they received that said that the students wanted that kind of flexibility. So that is why they decided to move there. But in order to be able to continue to support students, they wanted to make sure they had a staff person there.
Okay, are you going to talk about this later? The raffles, UNM, or should we talk about it here?
We can talk about it here. Thank you for the question. So, no, I wasn't actually going to talk about it.
Okay.
Because really, to be fair, there's nothing that's particularly solid in terms of for Santa Fe Community College and the Higher Education Center. But for those who are unfamiliar, although there have been 2 newspaper articles, including one today, that talks about UNM being interested in looking at the Santa Fe University of Art and Design campus to possibly move programs. I know that the newspaper article, I believe, mentioned that the mayor reached out to UNM. Where Santa Fe Community College became involved in those conversations were when we had a former, basically he's a dean emeritus, reached out to us with representative, the actual director of education for Raffles, and they asked to meet with us regarding what a possible partnership could look like. Again, some of the history included Raffles was initially slated to come in and purchase the Santa Fe University of Art and Design, but as they started to go through that process, they realized they were not going to be able to receive the accreditation. They thought the accreditation initially could be passed on to them, and the Higher Learning Commission suggested that wasn't the process, and so they felt like they weren't going to be able to do anything with the campus without a partner. They reached out to UNM and to us, and basically there's been one full face-to-face conversation about what a partnership could look like, again, with the Director of Education for Raffles and the Dean Emeritus from UNM, who's kind of speaking on UNM's behalf in this exploratory process. And one of the things that we found out very quickly in the process of that discussion, and I'll just say the discussion included myself, Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs Margaret Peters, and former President Randy Grissom, Raffles is really looking at offering bachelor's opportunities, particularly to students from Asia. So they really want to look at tapping the China market, the India market, and the Indonesia market. So they're really having an associate's degree isn't necessarily what they're looking for because they want to create an entire experience. They want it focused on arts and design. So very much that fine arts emphasis, that design emphasis that could come out of some of what's already being done at Santa Fe University of Art and Design, of course, the facilities that are there. And they want to really leverage, for lack of a better word, what Santa Fe has to offer in terms of arts and culture for particularly foreign students to come and experience, and again, have that be a whole package. But really, they need a partner who can help them offer bachelor's programs and possibly post-baccalaureate programs. So that's why UNM is their primary partner. But as we did continue to have some of the conversation, they did talk about maybe looking at ways to also recruit out-of-state students to this area, but again, they'd really have to look at bachelor's and master's programs. So where the conversation finally landed is how can then, if those partnerships are put in place, if UNM chooses to work with Raffles and they choose to move forward with the Santa Fe University of Art and Design campus as being the place to do that, how can then Santa Fe Community College play a role? And really, you know, there were conversations about faculty, there were conversations about transfer. You know, always for us, the major goal is having a clear pathway where our students can go. So if there was a place for Santa Fe Community College arts and design students to have another opportunity to transfer to an institution that's accredited and that is offering vibrant, relevant programs, obviously we would be at the table and willing to do that. But of course, there were conversations regarding tuition costs, what kind of financial assistance would be available, what an out-of-state or a foreign student might be is able to pay, I guess, is not in the realm necessarily for a transferring Santa Fe Community College student without a real strong partnership that really talks about scholarships, fellowships, discounts, and those sorts of opportunities. So that was basically where the conversation was left, I suppose, on a formal level. I did have a follow-up with the Dean Emeritus, Brown in particular, and he just came to talk about how does the HEC work in general. He was still looking at how could the HEC play a role, but there wasn't an immediate kind of clear picture of what that would look like, and they were still very much in their conversations with UNM, and so of course you know they were concentrating on what UNM and Raffles would be doing together, and then maybe Santa Fe Community College could come in kind of a different way.
So UNM is not looking at that campus for anything other than a relationship with Raffles? It's not like they want to bring other...
My understanding from the conversations that were had previously was it really what's prompting them to look at that campus is the relationship with Raffles. Now, I don't know if that's changed. To be fair, that was an initial conversation with, their enrollment management AVP a while back. So certainly, as we know, things change, things evolve. But the last thing we were to understand was it was prompted primarily by the relationship and opportunities with Raffles.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was very interesting, and we will obviously be interested to see how that develops. Could I just ask a question about Highlands? Could you just briefly tell us a little about the various bachelor's and master's programs? What are they?
Sure, and while I should have them memorized, I don't. Let me cheat.
Okay.
And you'll see, so the bachelor's programs that they offer, business administration in the various tracks that includes marketing, finance, management, and accounting. This is why I need the cheat sheet.
Okay.
Thank
I can't read that.
No, so that's
I don't know
why
how
we
you
get-
can.
So we also have a bachelor's in criminal justice, the bachelor's in education, 2 tracks, early childhood education as well as elementary education, and psychology and social work. The master's degrees are in business administration, counseling with 2 tracks in school counseling and professional counseling as well as rehabilitation counseling, curriculum and instruction with reading or TESOL emphasis, educational leadership, special education, and social work.
And what does it look like, given that they are the anchor institution there at the HEC, what does it look like in terms of the number of classes they actually have, or the number of students, or just to give me a sense of
Thank
that.
you, Member Gamble, for the question. They have anywhere from 300 to 400 students any particular given semester. I don't have the exact numbers right
Yeah,
now, but it's on
that's fine.
average. All of their programs, with the exception of business, are offered all on campus, on site. They have 8 dedicated classrooms for which they pay, all of which are full. So much so that they've actually had to ask us for overflow classrooms the last 2 semesters, particularly for their social work cohorts, both bachelor's and master's, because they are exceeding the amount of students that they had initially planned for, particularly in those cohorts. Now, what's tricky, I think, sometimes when the public comes to the building is those classes, because they are typically cohort programs, and they are built in a lot of ways for meeting the needs of working adults. Most of their classes, with a very few exceptions, start Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. and later. But the building is open till 10, and the last class lets out at 9:45, and that's Monday through Thursday. On Friday, because of the way that their cohort courses are built, particularly in criminal justice and social work, students are there basically from about 8:30 a.m., and again, in those 8 dedicated classrooms, until about, depending on which class you're looking at, 3 to 4 p.m. So we're pretty full on Fridays upstairs. Their business courses are mixed. They have some on ground, a lot online. So they do offer that program. I don't want to say majority online, but I think a good portion. It might be majority online. However, something that came out of the student feedback that was received prior to and during the HLC visit was they would like to see more of those courses on ground. And the faculty are open to having that conversation. So, and I'll talk a little bit further about a little bit later about some of the other articulation agreements that we're currently in the process of working on and finalizing, and how we're having some creative ideas about how some of those courses could be offered both at the HEC, but possibly even at SFCC if we can collaboratively schedule and make it work for both institutions.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I'll just kind of go through these quickly, but obviously please feel free to stop me. But again, in terms of things that are going on, we did complete our computer lab, and I'm going to just shout out a big thank you to OIT and Jeremy Lovato and his whole team for helping us get this all done. We're very excited. This was a computer lab that is joint funded. All three institutions and Los Alamos came together to realize that we need to meet these needs, these technology needs, not just in STEM, but across the area, across the disciplines, I should say. It'll give us some opportunities to open up some of these other programs that I'll talk about here shortly. And we already have classes ready to go in spring 2018. They're chomping at the bit to get into the room. So our business faculty in particular are very excited. And it's a dual boot system, and I know just enough so that Jeremy will throw something at me later. They are technically they're Macs, but they can also be booted up in a PC environment. And so this means it just opens the door for them being able to be used across disciplines and for all the programs that are offered there and any future programs which might come in. So we're very excited. Collaborations in the works, again, with New Mexico Highlands University. Primarily what it's time to start talking about, as we are about to turn 3 years old, is data. We've had some time. We have some initial data that is starting to come in that Highlands has provided. We need to merge it with our Office of Planning and Institutional Effectiveness. But the kinds of questions we want to ask are how many SFCC graduates transferred and graduated with a bachelor's degrees? How many have gone on to apply for master's programs? We know that they're there anecdotally. Jocelyn Monsalvo Hernandez, who's one of our student workers over at the HEC, she works for Highlands, graduated with us, is about to finish her bachelor's in May with New Mexico Highlands in social work, and has just turned in her packet for applying to the master's program. So we're very excited. And I could do those anecdotal examples all day, but obviously we want to be able to see it in black and white. Again, how many students transferred to NMHU from SFCC in various semesters, in which programs, are they successfully moving forward? So being able to start to see patterns and where we're successful and where there might be room for improvement. Obviously, we're also talking about how do we increase some of those articulation agreements, not just those ones that live at the HEC, but moving beyond that to some that maybe we haven't had in the past. And then, and we're a little bit excited about this, particularly with forestry, and actually with media arts and computer science as well, because of the new computer classroom. You know, how do we don't have labs over at the HEC. So this is where we get really excited about, this is partnership. This is leveraging resources. This is saying we're good stewards and we're going to serve our students. So maybe that means they finish their associates with us, they transfer into forestry, and maybe they have to do a couple of classes over here on the main campus somewhere. And how do we do that? And how do we do that so that it works? How do we make it make sense? And because there is some workforce data to suggest that we do need to be exploring these areas, we want to make sure that we're moving forward on those. Collaborations, again, Northern New Mexico College, they are also looking at different ways to partner. Every time we have a meeting with both President Bailey and Provost Cornejo, Lopez, we have the opportunity to really see all the different ways there. Sorry, I just want to call him Yvonne. I apologize. I never think of his last name. they're talking about the same kind of thing. How do we look at these sustainability programs? How do we map them to what Northern has in some of the same areas? Because we don't have labs. How do we look at sharing spaces? How do we get creative about how we offer some of those classes so that we can do it at the HEC? Their deans, again, their provost, their president, we're all looking at all these different ways. And again, it's really just about how can we provide more opportunities and access for students.
On that point, Madam Chair, why couldn't we have HEC classes here for our partners? There's no reason.
Thank you for that question. No, there is no reason. I think as we had started the partnership, as it always happens, we were so focused on making sure we were using the building and, creating programs that could fit in the building that we sort of left the other stuff behind. But we see it happening anyway, right? We have students who are in consortium agreements. They're here, they're over there. For a while, we had a respiratory program that piloted over at the HEC and then moved over here. I'm sorry, radiologic.
Radio.
And so we know that the students can move back and forth. We do know that they are able to live on both campuses. And so there is no reason not to do it. Really the struggle, or the challenge, I should say, that we're going to have here, but we have a great task force that's already working on it, is making sure that we don't take away any classrooms from our programs, obviously, in order to do that. We want to make sure we're scheduling efficiently and fairly and equitably, and we want to make sure that everyone is served. All students are served, all programs are served.
I suspect you also need to be aware that faculty need space that they can kind of call their own and think about how they organize that.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Romero. We have found that. In fact, one of the ways that Highlands chose to expand when they expanded is they actually took over additional offices that we had over there. They had their own adjunct faculty space. Of course, students encroach on that an awful lot. And so they really did find that they needed ways to offer office space, private office space, for their faculty to be able to do their work, but to meet with students, et cetera. And so we've used, for anyone who's been over at the HEC, those cubby holes, those fish bowls, as we often call them, kind of creatively for that. But we've also figured out how to make sure that they have ample office space, although they could always use more.
Thank you.
And really the last thing is just, we continue to tell our story. We've talked about how important marketing is. Todd Lovato and his team have been amazing in terms of helping us do that. We're really still very much in a narrative phase, we find. We're continually surprised at how many people still tell us, well, I didn't know you were here. Well, I don't know what you do. So we're just continuing to look at ways to do that. And again, the NPR team is great in terms of helping us. Joint recruitment with the partners is also helping, of course. And really, the Facebook, and I just sort of slapped up some examples in terms of visually, the Facebook campaign, signs at the Santa Fe Place Mall, which I still want to call Villa Linda, Santa Fe Place Mall. That's one of the Rail Runner posters that we have. So really just continuing to get our story out there. We have a new website. Again, I have to thank Todd and Sarah Martinez for their monumental efforts in helping us get that done. It's beautiful. It's way better, is just what I'm going to say. Bus wraps, etc. So just trying to make sure we're still telling our story. I just threw up some pictures. Obviously, we had the open house in August that you all had an opportunity to hear about before. So there are a few pictures from that. You see all the partners were represented. Provost from New Mexico Highlands University, Roxanne Gonzalez, had the opportunity to do a feedback tour for some proposed changes to structure for the centers prior to the Higher Learning Center Commission coming in. We were obviously not only a host, but she had us play an active role in that. We were very glad to be able to do that. And then also there's a picture of the orientation that Highlands has for their students every single semester, for the incoming students who've never been at the HEC before. And that's really it. That's where we're at this time. Again, a lot of just continuing to move forward with things we're doing, conversations that are happening, continuous work in terms of telling our story, strengthening those partnerships, and trying really hard to make sure that those students are supported at all times.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any
I have
questions?
another question, Madam Chair. So what's with the Seattle group, the film group?
Thank you for that question, Member Siegel. They are still waiting in the wings. We still have two partners who continue to wait in their prospective partners, I should say. Let me be very careful. Who are waiting in the wings and who are still continuing to wait to get through the higher education department process that will allow them to come in and offer courses. Now, because we had built some enthusiasm for Seattle Film Institute coming in, we didn't want to leave those students with no options, and we certainly didn't want to lose them to lack of movement. So Seattle Film Institute worked through a different way of offering courses, Sarah, but they had to become a fully distance program in order to be able to do that. So they worked on their curriculum, made it accessible for a fully online engagement and delivery. And so right now, the initial cohorts are still going through, but they're going through distance ed. There are some kinds of contracts which do not interfere with what the higher education department is asking for. We're not offering classes on site. We're not providing instruction. No instruction is being offered on site. There are some small tutorials and things that they are allowed to do for moving forward. So we do have students who started with Seattle Film Institute. They're very excited. They're enjoying it. They do check in with us to see where we're at in the process, to see should it become a fully HEC, a partner.
Taking so long with the higher education department? You don't.
We've, honestly, we've heard, we do check in. We've heard really they're just understaffed. And along with the petitions that they get in order to be able to let new universities and colleges into the state.
Let new economic development come into the state.
They also have others that they're recertifying, and they have one individual really, for the most part, who works on all of that. And so we wait.
Okay.
We wait. And so, but we have great partners who are enthusiastic. They're not going anywhere. They check in. Seattle Film Institute's President David Schulman is always a great partner, very communicative, as is the team at Bellevue. So they're really lovely opportunities that are waiting in the wings. We're just being patient and waiting for them to come.
So
You had one more?
One more question. As we heard from LFC and as we know about the use of the building, what are we doing to think of other creative uses of the building in the down times? Or what can we do to work on that?
Thank you. We continue to look at other meetings, rental opportunities. This is the next phase of the new website and unfortunately Todd has been waiting on me to provide him with the material. But we do want to put pictures, the fee sheet, things like that, so that we can have a public place to point people to when it's time to think about a place to hold a meeting or to hold a training. Again, we talked a little bit about this the last time, continuing education and contract training, continue to look at ways, are there classes that they can offer over there that make sense so that their population tends to be more available during the day, the time that maybe, like, for example, the SFCC classes or the Northern or Highlands classes haven't started yet. So they're looking at what programs can we move over there that would be exciting. We've had some conversations with Santa Fe Public Schools and the Interfaith Public Coalition in terms of how can they maybe think about using the space for delivering things, in the case of Santa Fe Public Schools, ACT prep, or things for their mentoring. Match New Mexico is a mentoring program that works with Santa Fe Public Schools. They're doing their mentorship class on site on Fridays. a little bit later. But again, these are kinds of things we're talking about and seeing, but always any suggestions are welcome. Because obviously we'd like to make sure that we're filling the building and utilizing it to its full potential.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, you had a question?
So, first of all, could you tell us the amount of time that those applications have been pending from our partners? How long have they been over there? What's the count now?
Bellevue started, give or take a few weeks, 11 months ago. And Seattle Film Institute formally submitted in June
Of this year?
of this year.
Yeah, okay.
And partially, we were waiting on, Seattle was willing to start the process earlier, but we had heard some rumblings that perhaps the process might change. And it actually has now, but of course, we're in the old process. So we sort of sat on it for a little bit. And also because they were also a member of SARA, which is this other, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to know what the acronym stands for right off the top of my head, but another venue for which colleges can come in. And because they were always a blended curriculum, both online and on ground, they weren't sure if they had which of these processes, because there are different processes depending on how the institution is defined. And so they weren't sure exactly which process. So we had a little bit of an exploratory phase in the first part of the year that we had to make sure we were kind of getting through to look at. So, but they have actually been in conversation with HED probably since December. So they're probably in some form or another in trying to determine where they fit, probably about 12 months.
Thank you. George?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on you. You suggested that you're still in the narrative phase of sort of discussing what the HEC is doing, and you also mentioned the need for data. Who has the responsibility? What's the follow-up procedure on trying to get some of that data? Because obviously, and you know this as well as we do, all those data are very valuable for a whole variety of purposes year-round. And since Yash has taken a seat there, maybe he's stepping up to tell us that he is responsible for that.
He's really not, and thank you for the question. And while I very much appreciate my colleague stepping up, while he is very much a part of the conversation for getting that data, really the responsibility lies with me. I serve as the facilitator for asking the partners for particular kinds of data. We do have a data sharing agreement with all our partners. It's automatic. When you come into the HEC, you sign a data sharing agreement. So really, I kickstart that process. I kickstart the process both with marketing and with data. So honestly, there were conversations. Yash has been very persistent and kind in making sure that I don't lose sight. I do think that initially, though, we wanted to make sure that we did have some time. If we were going to start looking at patterns, if we were going to start looking at ways to use data usefully to make improvements and to tell us where our successes are, we needed to have a little bit of time in order to do that, which is why we're sort of kickstarting it now.
So
but I facilitate that process, but I will let Yash fill in.
Well, I guess also sort of following up on that, are the partners being cooperative in terms of providing data? And of course, the other aspect of providing data other than the end result of having data is establishing a system so that indeed there is constant feedback of data on whatever regular basis. So even though the numbers are small and the period of time is very short, still useful.
Thank you. Yes, they have always been cooperative. I am very
Great.
fortunate in that my job is made easier because I have very good partners.
That's wonderful.
At the table. They are responsive. Because of the recruitment aspect, we have been, I think, offering more to them on a regular basis and in a process. And that was really the process we focused on building first. How do we have a regular process so that we give to our partners the information they need to be able to actively and effectively recruit our students into their programs? Now I think we can start to build it the other way. But no, we have really, I can't say enough, we have really great partners. And I don't know if you want.
Thank you. That's very
Well,
good.
Rebecca did a perfect job, so I'm sorry. I just wanted to come here to support my colleague here. One of the other things we're doing is we're tracking students through the HEC, but also other locations through the National Student Clearinghouse. And Cheryl and her team through the Welcome Advancement Center is also looking in terms of reverse transfers. So in the near future, I think you could expect more of our graduates, both in associate degrees and also in a bachelor's degree in our community, coming from this kind of partnership.
And I'll just add to that, this was the first year that we actively talked about and now have included a section regarding reverse transfer in our MOAs with our partners, requiring it basically.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much on that.
So Rebecca, remind us, how many staff people work with you?
One? No, sorry. That's an interesting question. Thank you for the question. I have one office administrator who is dedicated to the HEC, and that's Margie Mascareñas, and she's very helpful. I have recently been given another position, Jennifer Goudelet. She's a bit of a floater for me, though. As you know, I also have the other hat, if I turn it on, of overseeing our dual credit programs and our partnerships with our high schools. And so when Jennifer came on in August, she both helped at the HEC in terms of having some staff coverage, but she also began to work with the dual credit specialist at the time, Reyes Coca, to go out to the high schools, because he was one dual credit. I've always only had one dual credit specialist once the position was finally created. And, you know, that individual works with the 19 partner schools, goes out to the high schools, talks to families and students here on campus, does an awful lot of work. And so when I was fortunate enough to be given Jennifer, and that sounds terrible, that's a terrible way to say it, when Jennifer began to report to me, you know, we were able to use her in a couple of different ways. Reyes Coca has since left. He found a new opportunity at New Mexico Highlands, working with the social work program in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho. And so I am currently in the process of getting ready to post that dual credit specialist position. And so Jennifer has been temporarily moved away from the HEC work and has been focusing on the dual credit work in order to kind of get us through. And then again, I'll have the opportunity hopefully to then have her back in both places. So, but specifically at the HEC, again, there's Margie Mascareñas. I have two great security guards who are technically Securitas, but they actually report up through our security chief, Chris Gettler, and they are practically staff. I mean, particularly right now, Nicole Armijo, who's the evening security, is probably helping to run the building. She's pretty amazing. And then we have great custodial staff. We've had some changes in that, but it's a family over there. And we continue to try to figure out ways to work with each other, creatively work with each other. The Small Business Development Center does live over there. They don't report to me. They're not really, they're not running the day-to-day of the HEC, but of course they're there and they're supportive and they can do, of course they're busy all the time with their own mission. But it's the Highlands folks who work over there, Sarah McCormick with Northern, who's recently moved over there. It's been a family. We have figured out how to make it all work, and people have come and gone, and it continues to be a place where we're just all kind of depending on each other. If the Highlands folks aren't there, we're answering the questions. If Sarah's not there, we're answering Northern questions. But that's all of us. It's a very non-competitive and very collaborative space.
So they don't provide you any kind of professional support other than their professionals who teach and administer their programs. But it's collaborative in terms of you're being able to work with each other and cover for each other.
Yes.
That's great.
Very much so. Marianne Sandoval, who is the, I'm going to get her title wrong. They have their titles differently, but I'll just call her the Highlands guru over there because she really is. She does everything. She can help advise. She answers questions. She helps us with the facility. Robert Anaya, who's over there, who is currently the manager for the site for Highlands, he'll roll up his sleeves and do just about anything. So, yes, it's very much a collaborative, collegial place.
Any other questions? Okay. Board reports or discussion or other business. We've already talked about raffles and UNM and the University of Art and Design, but is there anything else? Yes.
Madam Chair, I would just like to, I would love to see, I know, so thank you for Board Member Gamble's comments on the data, and I know that the data moving forward is important, and we're getting that now, and we can start to tell the story of long-term impacts. I think it's also important that, Rebecca, you talked about telling the story, for us to help you tell that story, to have just kind of a very short fact sheet in terms of what the Higher Education Center does. So how many students are we serving on each semester, an average number of that in our program? So how many students are in the building working on degrees? So you talk about the fact that we're seeking community meetings. Well, I know that I have been to a lot of community meetings at the HEC that over the last year. So how many of those meetings do we host? What are those kind of groups that we facilitate now so that we're able to tell the story of how we have been able to utilize that building, knowing that moving forward we'll have additional data. But right now we've got some important things to talk about as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, thanks. If there's no other order of business?
So we did have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we did.
A lot to catch up on.
There, move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Okay.
Until the next quarter.
All right, then I will call the regular board meeting to order. We have a quorum. Welcome, everybody. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Any public comment? Nope. Okay, then our president's report.
Good evening, Chair Siegel and board members.
Are you on?
Oh,
There you are.
thank you. So, our last meeting was, I believe, the 20th of November. And it's been a very, very busy 3 weeks, particularly as the semester was moving to draw to a close. And so you do have my report. And, that's not the one I have in front of me, but I will go through that one. I had updated it, but I guess you didn't.
It was not updated. I didn't get it until really late, and so it was not updated.
I'm sorry.
On
On the
in the
screen?
packet, but it is in each of the.
We all
in
have
our
a,
packet.
we all
Oh.
have the one in the packet, so you can use it.
Can I use it?
Yeah,
Because it won't go, it won't be in sync.
That's okay.
And what I tried to do is, I have one. I do have one. I just, when I looked up there and it wasn't what I had, I wondered. But okay. So what I tried to do is align the report with the goals that I had talked about with you all. And so the first one has to do with leadership to support the February 2018 bond election. And so right after, I think it was like within a week that we got approval for the resolution for the bond election. The executive team met with CWA Strategic Communications in order to strategize and finalize the marketing campaign with Patty Wilson. And, the important theme that emerged had to do with no new taxes, that was really critical, that we emphasized. And, of course, today the entire campaign was rolled out, and that was the goal. She's been working on it, like she said, for the past 2.5, 3 weeks. About a few days after that, I met with the faculty and staff for my first conversation with the president. It was kind of early in my tenure, but I really wanted to have the opportunity to get to know the faculty and staff better and the students and vice versa. So I decided to go ahead and have it, even though it was kind of early on in my time at Santa Fe Community College. It was packed. There's a lot of people there. They had the opportunity to submit questions in advance, which and there was about 3 to 4 questions submitted. But, I did a short introduction about myself, and then I answered the questions. There was one that had to do about physical plant and furniture inquiries, how I was going to contribute to Santa Fe Community College during my 1-year tenure. And I talked about the bond election being very, very important, about continuing to increase student success, about continuing to move forward with our strategic plan as being very high, on the agenda as we discussed with the board. And then I talked about that I was exploring with executive team the value and importance of representing Santa Fe Community College with pride and professionalism. And that one thing that I noticed when I came is that I didn't know who anybody was. In terms of, I didn't know if they worked here, I didn't know if they were visitors, I didn't know if they were students or student workers, and that other places that I've been, as a way to convey the pride that you have in the institution where you work, and then also as a way of providing outstanding customer service to faculty or community visitors, etc., people that work for the institution wore name badges. And so we had a conversation about that, and I found out that a few years back, about half of the faculty and staff got name badges, but then they didn't wear them because the other half didn't have them, And so we've been engaged in how we can obtain name badges for everybody, and the foundation's going to help. Nick has found some money, so that's going to happen early next year. And again, I think it's just, I know that way, if I'm new, I see someone with a name badge and I know they work here, and I can ask them, which direction to the Hemis rooms or whatever, that they're a safe person to engage in conversation and question. And so can students, anybody, exactly. So we had that conversation. And then, of course, I talked about the bond election and about getting out the vote and about how our faculty and staff are outstanding ambassadors to assist us in that process. And they're very eager, want to be involved. I talked about, that CWA strategic directions or communications will get us some talking points. And they did talk about having, a card that was very brief that faculty and staff could have, and then one that was more detailed for people that would go out and speak to Rotary or Chamber, whoever, more bigger organizations. And then just, I think it was last week, we had another meeting in executive team, and we brainstormed to marketing about how we can more fully engage faculty and staff to indeed be ambassadors, to indeed assist us in the bond election. So we've been engaged in that process, and we talked about possibly getting Go Vote or Vote On buttons, because I said, well, what if we're at Trader Joe's? And the person next to me, I'm wearing my button, and I say, well, do you know what this is about? And then encourage them to get out and vote, for instance. So
now we know where you shop.
I know, that's one of the places. I shop based on ads and sales. But anyway, so the next set of reports has to do with increasing student success, and I wanted to focus on a few of them. We have a lot of them, but about a week and a half ago, we went to Albuquerque for a ceremony with a Mexican consul, and we, for the 4th time, received the grants for IME, the Instituto de los Mexicanos en el Exterior, Mexicans that live outside of Mexico. And so we had a great contingent that went from Santa Fe Community College of 13 students that are ambassadors that have worked with Ernest Kavanaugh, and the consul, who had actually been here the day before to meet with us, and her vice consul, Arias, and we signed the MOU, or MOA, whichever it was. And so one of our students, Bianca, spoke about coming and, as a young child and not really having options, but by the time that she came to Santa Fe Community College, all the support that she received from Ernest and our faculty and staff, was positioning her to get into the nursing program. So she was a fabulous speaker and really made a difference. And in this particular item, I wanted to add that afterwards we got to go to lunch in Albuquerque, and we invited, because President Bailey from Northern was there because his institution got IME becas also. So we invited him and one of his faculty to join us for lunch. And he just really relishes being a partner with us. He's so enthusiastic, as Rebecca conveyed. And it just loved the fact that we invited him. He wanted to pay. We said, no, you're our guest. We invited you to come, and we want to treat you. And he, he's just a really, really effective partner, and constantly sings our praises. So another great piece of money that we got was from Con Alma Health Foundation, $150,000, $50,000 a year for 3 years, and that's going to help us develop and implement an LPN, Licensed Practical Nursing Program at Capitol High School. Fantastic program. I'm so excited that we're getting it. In collaboration with the New Mexico Nursing Education Consortium, with the goal of nesting the LPN program into a BSN pre-licensure. Fabulous way to get young students into allied health, specifically nursing, and staying in their home community. So, the crowning element to student success is commencement. So we had a great, fantastic commencement, as I mentioned over in the previous session. With being back home, it was just a fabulous feeling of belonging and succeeding. And, everything just went smoothly. I know member Keith mentioned how great it was to be back and to see the students walking around in the balcony, as they paraded out, feeling so proud. And, of course, all the parents and family members that were there celebrating with them was joyous. And President Noemi spoke. She was our student speaker, did an outstanding job, as always. She's just an articulate, intelligent woman, and represented students well, and really liked your speech about being rooted, in your community and being proud of who you are and rising to the occasion and succeeding. She did an outstanding job. So, and the mayor, he loves us and relishes being our partner. And he used some of this data here that you've got in terms of, that we had 452 graduates, about 140 walked, the ages from 16 to 84, and that they earned 502 degrees and certificates. A lot of, I'd say the majority of the ones that walked got certificates, which is very, very interesting, because they're on a pathway, into the workforce, and those certificates can fit into a degree program, so we got them hooked. And then, the demographics of our students is great, including 17 graduates are military veterans. So the mariachis led the students out. Everybody, it was a beautiful day. It warmed up. Some stayed in, some went out. A lot of joyous celebration going on. And I don't know if member Keith or Gamble want to add anything about. It was great. It really, really, really was. I just said next time let's have bizcochitos. People agree.
Really?
So, and then in the third part is about the strategic plan. We are a leader in sustainability, and so again the mayor joined us, as well as employees from Trades and Advanced Technology. Luke was there, Luke Spangenberg. And, just recognizing us for all that we do with to promote clean energy, transportation, and sustainable development in the community. So we had a great representation from the community leaders that were recognizing us in that regard. We had a holiday luncheon a few weeks ago, just as a way to celebrate our employees, thank them, build team, come together, and I made sure that I encouraged supervisors to have their staff come at different hours. We had like a 3-hour spread so people could come at different times. So we had about 350 people that ended up coming. So it was very, very joyous. And then another recognition in terms of Santa Fe Community College being recognized for a 2017 PNM Business Energy Efficiency Star Award for achieving significant energy savings. And Director of Plants and Operations, Henry, accepted the award on our behalf. Congratulations to you and your team for that. And I just want to, because I didn't mention it earlier, that Henry's team, maintenance, staff, plant operations did an outstanding job on commencement day because they had 2 major events going on. They had the commencement over in the fitness center, and then we had that huge craft fair that we have, huge, and over here in the main building, and it went off smoothly. They, really rise to the occasion, and thanks to you and your team for all of that commitment to the college. We had mentioned before that we were going to open 2 more Kids Campus pre-kindergarten classrooms, and those opened. Again, your staff rose to the occasion and did some renovation to brighten up and make them airy and accommodate the students. That opened up. And then I did have a chance to meet with Luke Spangenberg and Ondine Fronglass about the Innovation Center and its efforts about a possible partnership in China. We are having ongoing conversations there. So then miscellaneous items. I did attend the Legislative Finance Committee to learn about the 2018 funding priorities. Secretary Dameron did indicate that it would be a flat funding is what the legislature was recommending with 6.5%. How does that work? It's that's shaved off the top and then redistributed for performance. Yes. Yeah, that, and of course all the independent colleges, the universities, and the branch colleges would like that to be less. There was talk about a 2%, trying to go for a 2% compensation package, and decoupling the lottery. So that was talked about. It was very interesting. I went with Vice President Thayes, and he was a great guide around the Capitol for me. And then the last thing I have under miscellaneous is, with your approval, in January 2018, we'll bring forward a request for the college to join the City of Santa Fe in issuing a joint proclamation, kicking off the Santa Fe Community College Kindness Campaign led by Camila Bustamante and her team, and the city's Compassionate City Initiative. So that is, some work has been done that will present to you a logo about the keys to kindness at SFCC. And it's just another way, I think, of reinforcing our welcoming environment, our emphasis on student success, and our partnership with the city. Are there any questions or additional information that you would like?
Question on
Yes.
the LFC.
Yes.
Is that where the issue of another community college
yes.
came up?
Yes. That was in the afternoon report. And what Secretary Dameron talked about was, the 3 institutions in New Mexico which are having difficulty financially, and that includes Highlands and Northern, and those both are on probation by the Higher Learning Commission. But her recommendation was not for the state not to get involved and do anything regarding their progress, because she felt that they were moving forward in a positive manner. So she was satisfied with their progress, but she had major concerns, grave concerns about Luna Community College, who is under show cause regarding their accreditation. And they are preparing a report. Luna's preparing a report to submit in February to the Higher Learning Commission. I believe by March, the Higher Learning Commission is supposed to come and visit based on that new report and make a decision by, the end of the spring and about their accreditation.
Whether they'll lose it? Or?
Correct. And really, the show cause means that Luna has to show cause why they shouldn't lose it. It's grave. So her recommendation not to wait, because obviously we're the most concerned about the she's most concerned about the students and what'll happen to them if all of a sudden in the end of May, they lose accreditation and the students are out in the cold. So she's recommending that the state put Luna under the auspices of another community college, is the way she put it, and that the advisory board or the governing board for Luna, that they would somehow still advise, the other college, but that the administration would be supervised by the other community college. And Senator Smith said that he would champion that bill. He would put that bill forward, and there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of questions asked of interim President Serna, and there were board members from Luna there, but they were not asked questions. But it was a long discussion about that topic, wasn't it?
One question.
Yes.
So, is there a plan for a teach-out for the students who are there and completing their programs? Or will that follow?
I think that would follow. He did say that they have worked closely with the Higher Learning Commission for the wording of how to communicate the concerns right now and the condition that they're in terms of show cause, and that the message was that as long as they're accredited, the courses they take are counted. But that if the X drops and they stop being accredited, then nothing else would count. They'd have a transcript and it would say not accredited.
So they're not planning a teach-out?
I didn't hear anything about a teach out. Did you? Oh, Jenny knows something. Okay.
I was just going to address the accreditation issue because I've seen this happen and others here with other nursing programs in the state that lost their accreditation and they had to find other schools and programs. Doña Ana being the one that had closed temporarily. And our dental director has already gotten a call from their dental folks. And I'm just waiting for the call from nursing. Not eagerly. So I think it is something that we have to start thinking about.
The other thing that Senator Smith said is that he asked Secretary Dameron to ask the governor if she would make some remarks in support of Secretary Dameron's recommendation, just to further support the movement of the bill that State Senator Smith would sponsor.
And his bill would be to move the college under the auspices of another college?
Yes, that's what I understood.
Did he talk about the college?
No college was mentioned out loud. No college was mentioned out loud, which was very interesting. I heard a lot of things under
Okay.
cover.
Kathy, you had some concerns about that,
Well, I just,
comments.
I'm not sure if any other board members have been contacted from the higher education department. It doesn't seem that President Cervantes has been contacted by the higher education department, but maybe it's something that we should proactively reach out and do. It just seems like if Santa Fe Community College is being considered, it would be nice to have a conversation and for us to be able to evaluate how that could potentially work for Santa Fe Community College, so that we could weigh that decision.
Well, I think, though, that it's a tricky thing, because you don't want to look like we are lobbying for it.
Right.
And so any effort to, begin conversations might be viewed in that way.
Unless it's a conversation to go.
Yeah, so I think we'd almost have to wait until there's something more definite that we can respond to, and then we'll have to say, we need to evaluate that. We need to see what the consequences are for us.
Would a choice be given?
Yeah, oh yeah. I think, I would have a concern that that's just the beginning of consolidation of higher education institutions when you create legislation that would enable another college to assume, even in a crisis situation, assume management of.
I did
I would
see,
too.
and you remember Compton Community College in California,
Yeah.
that they lost their accreditation, board members went to prison and things like that, that it was bad. And,
I was on the accrediting team, and we were threatened while we were there.
So, another community college, took Compton under its wing to improve things and get reaccredited, first under the other community, I think it was Cerritos Community College, and then eventually they won it back. It took years and years, but I recall that occurred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a different accrediting system.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Yeah.
I think my concern is that it's a pretty short window of time, the legislative session coming up. It's a 30-day session. So I would not like to find out about this the day a bill is introduced and then have less than 30 days for the board to evaluate and make a decision.
Well, that's assuming that bill will be introduced, because it's a 30-day session, so unless the governor were to put it on, it won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he wanted, Senator Smith wanted
the
Secretary to
secretary,
talk
yeah.
to the governor
Yeah.
about supporting that initiative.
I mean, I think the minute that the governor would put it on her agenda, but I doubt that that'll happen. But it's possible. But that's a 30, that's probably 45-day time frame. But
Maybe we could ask the president to just have some further conversations with the secretary
I'd be happy.
about general
General.
information
I will.
about her thoughts.
Yes.
on that.
I
think
will.
it would be
I'll call her.
extremely difficult for a college like us to assume responsibility for another community's college, or any college, assuming.
and I think the fear of consolidation is a real one.
Yeah.
I did want to say that another topic that Secretary Dameron brought up is that she had done some studies regarding the branch system and has some big concerns about the
The what?
branch community colleges. And she's concerned about the effectiveness of the branch community colleges and feels that they should all become independent like us, like our group, NMICC.
Rather than
Be under the universities,
That's
which
a positive thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a very big positive.
That's
Yes.
not
And
what they were
it's
talking
because
about.
they've never worked, no matter where they've been,
know.
Yeah.
branches of universities.
Yeah.
They just don't work.
different
They're the-
missions, different
Yeah.
missions.
Well, great report, thank you.
Thank
Wonder-
you.
Thank you.
One other question. President Cervantes, I wonder is there any further information you could give us about the China connection at the Innovation Center?
There continues to be conversation between our staff and some of their partners with with Mr. Dr. Alan Wilson.
You want me to talk?
Yeah, would you talk about it?
Actually, Dr. Alan Brown and I have been colleagues for a very long time, and we've worked in China together. He is in charge of an initiative that is looking at bringing students from China here and also providing an opportunity for some of our faculty and some of our students to do exchanges in China. There's a new city that China is building, a small city in China, 3 million people. So the person responsible for creating that city is a colleague with whom Dr. Brown and I have worked with on another project, and he's creating a whole city. So he wants to create museums, he wants to create a university, he wants to create economic development instruments, and Dr. Brown was here visiting probably about 1.5 years ago. He visited with Randy and I, and they was very impressed and thought that particular region of China would be very interested in some of our sustainability projects, the biofuel project, the solar projects, the gardening projects, and the kinds of operations that we have been able to build here. They were also very impressed with the nursing, the robotic lab. And they apparently have all kinds of money to create this new city with all the bells and whistles that they want. So that conversation has been ongoing for probably 2 or 3 years. As Dr. Brown says, in China anything is possible, but it takes a long time. So, 3 years in, it's still conversations. And Luke Spandenberg has been the person who has been working with them and just talking with our 2 corporate partners that are on campus, and then people there. So, I mean, that's, it's a very
Far away.
It's a very loose conversation at this time. It has a lot of potential for us in terms of our exchange of students and our exchange of opportunities for our students to visit another part of the world and to be a part of another part of the world, and also for them to interact with students who come from there here and get a chance to interact with international students. But it's not anything that's going to happen this year.
It might be nice to have Luke sometime come to a board meeting
Yes.
and tell us sort of where his latest conversation and
They're having a meeting. We're having a meeting on the 15th, I think, of December.
who is having a
I
meeting.
have been invited to these meetings because of my former connections with both Mayor Shin in China and with Dr. Brown. So I sort of sit in as a visitor, as an observer.
I'm invited.
But
Partners, the corporate partners, and
Yeah.
it's a conference call.
But Luke is really the one that's working with them. And I think I maybe can-
Thursday.
Is it Thursday?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. It's tomorrow. So, it's premature for us as a board to really have much conversation about that because there's nothing substantial there yet. It's all still in conversation. But it's a conversation that's ongoing.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting for
Yeah.
the board to
Sure.
sort of just know a little about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll invite
And in fact, the next time that Dr. Brown comes, he might be willing to stay over and talk to the board. In fact, we could invite him sometime when there's a board meeting. He travels quite freely for them. This collaborative would be a combination of MIT, University of California, Davis, Stanford, the Maricopa Community College System, us. Were there others, Cecilia? I'm trying to think of who
Those were the
I mean, it's a possibility for a huge collaborative.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to communications. No staff or faculty here. Naomi, do you want to do a student government report?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Interim President Cervantes. I am Noemi, as most of you all know, but for those who don't, I am the SGA Student Government Association President. We had our last meeting November 30th. It was a very interesting meeting. We had 2 fund requests. One went through. The other one's still in the talks. There's a few concerns on the funding amount and just other concerns legally with the college. So it's been taken over by Ernest Kavanaugh, and I believe with the foundation, and it had to go several steps higher. But for the Freedom Student Ambassadors, the funding request did go through. We are planning to meet actually tomorrow morning to go over improvements for our next SGA meetings for the following semester. We will continue to meet throughout our break in order to make a more, I just had a, to create a better SGA throughout the coming years, and for us to create a little bit more of a, for it to be more organized for incoming SGA members and clear information. So that's what we're going to be doing, and to our second meeting we will have our advisor attend and our senators. So we'll have everybody in the loop.
Okay.
And I think that's it. Oh, and then I spoke at graduation, as the interpresident mentioned. Thank you for those kind words. It was very nerve-wracking. I was shaking. But I guess I did okay. Nobody could tell I was shaking. Thank you. And I'm actually going to have to take off a little early today if I don't finish, just because I have another exam I have to do.
Good luck with your final.
Thank you.
It's an anatomy exam.
Ooh. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda, which has our special meetings and the final readings of policies. Do we want all those policies? Anyone have any concerns with the policies, or we'll leave them on the agenda? Okay, then let's have a motion to approve the consent agenda, including minutes and final reading of policies.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, nothing removed, non-consent, approval of banking resolution. Banking authority.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, President Cervantes. We've brought to you this approval resolution to have signatures for the new bank account. If you remember back, we procured successfully Century Bank, which is a local community bank, to replace our prior contract with Wells Fargo. And I have Amy Pell here. She's our controller for the college, and she's been working primarily on this resolution. So with that, do you have anything?
I would just like to say that this resolution is exactly the same as the resolution that was passed, I believe, in 2013. However, the board members that signed that resolution are no longer on the board. So Century Bank would like to see a new resolution with current board members. It basically just authorizes the president, Nick as a CFO, and Margaret Peters as VP of Academic Affairs to transact on behalf of the college.
And these are the people that have been listed before?
Exactly the same.
Okay. All right, any questions about this? Can I have a motion?
I move approval of the resolution.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is all of our accounts moving there? I'm sorry.
Yes, all of our accounts, except for we have to maintain for our debt service. We have an account with Bank of Albuquerque, and that one had to stay in place. Just for the rules associated with issuing bonds and paying off debt, trustee, things like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, purchases over 100, less than 150, nothing. First reading, none. Okay, we're on to board reports and a presidential search firm update. Is that what you just handed out?
So I'm just distributing an update of material that you've seen previously. Just to bring it up to date, we have the president has requested the participation of 2 staff people that the board thought would be useful to this committee, the Presidential Search Advisory Committee. Ernest Kavanaugh and Emily Stein. I'm not sure if you have been in touch with them yet.
I actually haven't been in touch with any of these.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Because I was working on the fact.
And then two representatives, the Staff Senate, and I think you have been in touch with the Staff Senate.
Yes.
These are, they go through the president because they are, after all, her employees. So the board, she has requested that the Staff Senate present the names of 5 nominees, and the board will select 2 of them to serve on the President's Advisory Committee. We've talked about having our SGA representative, and you'll still be the representative this year, right? So that would be Naomi. We have also, at the President's request, requested the nominations of 5 potential faculty to serve on the Presidential Search Advisory Committee. And again, the board will select 2, and also 5 to be nominated by the union, and the board will select 2 of those 5. So that will bring 4 staff representatives, 4 faculty representatives, and then direct reports.
Those haven't been in.
And you have not talked about them, so we'll wait to announce those when she has had an opportunity to talk with them. The staff liaisons, we talked also about the importance of having a staff liaison who is someone who interfaces with Rosemary Garcia, who's been assigned to us as the staff person, with the potential candidates when we have them. Foundation board members, I have talked with them. They are all willing. We've asked Deborah Bolt as a foundation executive director not to serve as a staff person, but as a foundation board member representative. Rick Abels, who is the immediate past president of the foundation, and Patricia McNeil, who is the foundation secretary. The community members who have agreed to serve are Mr. Pablo Cedillo, Dr. Tom Gonzalez, Dr. Rick Page, Miss Judy Williams, and we are awaiting the name of one advisory committee from the Program Advisory Committee to represent the trades on the committee, and that person will be named in the near future. But in addition to that, to have as wide a representation as possible, we will be working with the consultant to have focus groups with a much wider population, probably focus groups with internal staff people that could help us identify what characteristics we want and should see in the next president. In addition to that, the board at the last meeting, I asked them to provide me with names of people that they think should definitely be invited and encouraged to attend the community focus groups. And among those people are people like the public school representatives, the Santa Fe Area Homeowners Association, the Northern Area Workforce Board, and there's a whole list of these folks. And I would encourage the board, as you look at these, just looking at the president's report, I added 3 more that weren't on here. The Sustainability Santa Fe Commission, the Santa Fe Green Chamber, and the Climate Change Leadership Institute should probably be included in this list as well. But I'm sure that all of you have other names of people that we should be sure to seek out to participate in the community forums. And then the general public will also be invited. So we want as broad a representation as possible to help us think about what is it that we want in our next president. So that's where we are today.
Is there an update on the RFP from?
The RFP, yes. We have had, interestingly, Gold Hill, who was the selected consultant the last time, email and letter that went out from the purchasing agent apparently came back undeliverable. So I don't know whether they're out of business or what. When I talked with Ken yesterday, he said that he has had conversations with 4 people, 4 firms that were interested in submitting a proposal. None of them had questions, and they had until yesterday noon to submit questions if they had questions about the RFP. And to date, they had not had any questions. He had just had expressions of interest from 4 people or from 4 firms that they were interested in submitting a proposal. So if that is how it goes, the proposals will be due on January 11th, and then they would be evaluated following that, and then we would see about doing probably interviews with whatever the board selected as their. We would have a recommendation to the board, and then the board would probably want to at least have a phone interview with the search firm that they see most favorably.
All right, thank you. The legislative update. We have decided to have a legislative breakfast for our delegation on January 4th from 8 to 9:30 in the Higher Education Center, because everyone thought that would be a more central location to get our delegation here, because the session, though it doesn't start till the 16th, the week before the session, the Finance Committee meets, so we need to do it that first week of January. And so the real purpose of that meeting is to just let the legislators know what we're thinking about money, about what our capital outlay requests will be, and perhaps mention some of our feedback on the LFC report and our response to that report and whatever else we decide.
So do you want the board members at that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's a board delegation activity. Santa Fe Public Schools is having theirs tomorrow at 7:30. So we thought we'd be nice and do
So
8
it's
o'clock. 8 o'clock.
January 4th
Or Thursday
at
at the 8 o'clock, 8 to 9:30.
And some may not stay that long, but we have been doing this every year, except we didn't do it last year. And so we need to get back into just updating them, and it'll be a good opportunity for them to be in the Higher Education Center, even though it'll be empty, but it is not our fault it's empty.
So how many board members are likely to be here on January 4th?
I don't know. Who's not going to be here? You're not going to be here?
Probably will not be here.
Kathy, are you back? Here. Okay. George?
We'll be here.
Jack?
Oh,
Okay,
Oh,
so four of us will be here.
That's good.
Okay. Okay, and then the bond update. Do you have anything, Jack, on the board's activities that we're going to be doing with the bond? We sort of heard today and now we need to start scheduling our.
I haven't been involved in any of the activities.
So when you there's some questionnaire coming out from our consultant about groups that we need to see, or
Yes.
what is that, Todd?
Thank you, Chair Siegel. That is, aside from just the creation of the content of a lot of those different marketing collateral pieces, the organization arm of this is going to start rolling out concurrently, which will basically involve the outreach component. And so Patty Watson of CWA had a really good approach to that, which she only talked about shortly during the joint meeting, which was basically that kind of survey that will gauge people's level of interest of going out into the community. But that is the next step that we are is going to be creating a master list and getting people out into the community and scheduling and coordinating those things.
And Jack and Kathy did a master list some time ago, and I know you provided.
Yes.
Provided it too.
I have that list actually, and it's a great list. We're gonna start putting the rubber to the road on that list. It's just basically a list of key organizations, their representatives, and then some potential board members who might do outreach to those groups. So those groups will be accounted for as well as others.
So Jack is going to be our point person, so if you all can coordinate. You'll have to be working over this closed period of time.
Yeah.
Because scheduling activities and presentations and
That's right.
material development, so we know what we're supposed to say.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to happen over the break. That is my cross to bear. But $17 million is very important to the college. But also, we're excited to roll this stuff out. We've been working towards this for a long time, and now this is, I mean, it's exciting, and we want to start moving. But yes, the gears of this bond election will not be slowing down throughout the month of December.
Okay.
Just to add to your burden, in case the cross is not yet heavy enough, the commentary that was given, the presentation that the consultant gave us in the dual meeting this afternoon, I thought was very good. There was one piece that I thought was missing, a very important piece, and that concerns the why. And it really is, we know that it's going to be an election that will not incur any additional costs. That's good. Everybody will appreciate hearing that. What was missing from the presentation was something about, why should I go out to vote? What is it? Why is this necessary if it's not going to cost me anything? Is it, how come the community college is getting more money, but it's not costing me anything? It's a very, and I realize it's a little complicated, and we need to make it simple. But I think there's something of that sort that is necessary. Otherwise, people will say, well, why should I vote? And I think we don't want that question to come up. We want to be able to say it's desirable because we're doing this because.
Thank you, Secretary Gamble. I agree. What this campaign is going to boil down to is targeting the high propensity voters, and these are going to be people who asked the tough questions, and that includes the editorial boards of newspapers and those areas. So there's no skirting those things. So I think that today's conversation was a nice introduction, but it did not go into the levels of specifics that it will. There will be some just more superficial handouts, but there will also be some in-depth FAQ, frequently asked questions, documents as well. So while it is kind of it's tricky because even for myself, when I try to explain the finance component and these things to some people, I find myself like wanting to back out of that or wishing I hadn't. But at the same time, we're going to be scrutinized by the usual suspects. We're going to have a debate on the editorial pages of the New Mexican like we did in 2010. Which is another arm of this, which we'll all be talking about, the editorial, releasing our kind of public statements, our support for this, hopefully. But I would say that if today's conversation left you wanting more, then good. Let's address these things. If you feel like there's something lacking, please let me know, and I'm kind of the liaison to that group, and I will make sure that the why, the persuasive information is being addressed.
Good.
But yeah, we got to hang in there for like 2 more weeks. We're going to get this material out there. It's been delayed, and I think as this rolls out, that we'll have the proper accoutrements to get out there and make these persuasive arguments.
And certainly
Very
the
good.
delay was not of our making, but
Yeah.
we won't go there.
Yeah.
So can we get a timeline too of what, I mean,
Yeah, I have.
I don't see how you all are not going to work for the whole next 3 weeks.
Well, it's really why CWA is just very instrumental in this right now. I'm very grateful for them. But we have a pretty detailed memo that outlines just each week by week of where we should be. A good development right after our joint meeting was that Jill Carlson approached me for we're going to be making another presentation with all the material at our convocation kickoff meeting on January 8th. And following that, the joint meeting between staff and faculty senate will do a follow-up session with them. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but I'm happy to share the memo with Dr. Cervantes, who can make that available to you. And if it's
The timeline?
the timeline.
Get you
And
the
if it's
timeline.
too detailed, just let me know and we kind of break it down.
And, I mean, in the board, we're going to be going out there talking, and we really need our
information.
talking points as soon
They
as
really,
possible.
we all do.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know you know that.
Just bear with us for 2 more weeks, and we're gonna get those talking points, and we're just gonna be. It is a challenge because of the compressed timeline, and so January is going to be a tough. We'll be asking a lot of one another, I think, in January. Or hopefully, we will be, because that's when we know we're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Todd, since we won't be having another board meeting until January 24th, and since we are in the middle of a recorded meeting, and hopefully there's a few interested folks that do listen to our meetings, and could you repeat for them the date that this bond issue will take place, the amount, and the 3 primary accomplishments that this bond issue will address?
Thank you, Vice Chair Sullivan. The community college is asking the community to help pass a $17 million bond issue that will go on the election takes place on February 6th. Early voting starts on January 17th and will last through February 3rd. We are the Santa Fe Community College District, which is basically an overlay of Santa Fe County. So those are the eligible voters. And what the college is in critical need of at this time are improvements to its tech infrastructure, the development of an automotive technology center, and what's the
fitness center?
Oh, and the upgrades to the fitness center. And so we have had our last bond election in 2010. It's been almost 8 years. And so it's just the community college relies heavily on local appropriations for its support. So which means that our community really has a lot of say and has a lot invested in our success. And so we're asking them to continue to help us with some really essential things that are taking place that we need to move forward and to provide quality service, not just to the students, but also to the investment that the community has put into us. This is maintenance, and it's very important.
And I would add to that, Madam Chair, that a primary reason for the automotive program, which is which includes not only the need for trained technicians in Santa Fe proper, as local dealerships have told us, but is the fact that Northern New Mexico College has discontinued its automotive program, and so we are really left with that obligation and responsibility and opportunity to have a program that graduates with certificates and degrees that can provide these job opportunities right here for local people in Santa Fe. I was quite impressed at one of our earlier meetings that the attendance in that program, which the first year was in the 50s, I believe, is now 260 students in 1 year, in one additional year. So there's a tremendous demand. The facility that is now being used is non-expandable and minimally effective, and also not on our campus, which provides a security problem as well as other convenience problems. So that's a big part of this issue, and the other two that you mentioned, of course, are equally as important. So I just wanted to be sure that we initially got that information publicly out. A great deal of additional documents and advertisements and one-on-one meetings will take place as outlined to us earlier today. But we want to be sure the public is aware of this. It's been 8 years since the college has had a bond issue on the ballot, and this will be done jointly with the Santa Fe Public Schools will also have an issue on the ballot. So we want to be sure that people are aware of it. We want them to be sure that they vote on it, and if they have any questions, Todd and Dr. Cervantes can answer them, or as soon as we have all the detailed materials, we'll be able to answer them as well.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And,
Thank you.
and we must add to that this will not involve any increase in taxes. So indeed, if anyone is concerned about voting on this issue, there will be no increase in taxes as a result of this vote.
Thank you. Okay, can we have a motion to go into closed
No,
session?
we got college promise update.
I'm sorry, George. You're up next. Give us an update on what you all have been
Yes.
doing.
College Promise. Fred Nugent and Joe Debris are working with me on exploring College Promise program as it might be implemented here at SFCC. We are currently in the process of doing two things. One, gathering information from other Community Promise programs throughout the country. There are about 200. Some of them are statewide, some of them are individual. We have surveyed web pages of probably 75 or 80 of them. We are now starting to call individual places because they seem to have some interesting dimension on their program. Some of them, for example, there are a couple of them that are several, like 10 years old. Well, College Promise has only been around for less than that time. So these are community colleges that started a program prior to College Promise, which is fundamentally a so-called tuition-free program. So these are programs that started something before and then sort of blended into under the general umbrella of College Promise. Other places have very selective programs. Some programs are offering special financing for first-year students. Other programs are offering only for second-year students. Some of them are offering only for students in one field, like healthcare, etc. So we're telephoning these people in about, we've identified, I think, 8 colleges that kind of look interesting, and we're telephoning them, speaking to the director of the foundation or the registrar to kind of find out more details of what their program, how it's functioning, has it been effective, what kind of costs have been involved, etc. The second piece of evaluation we're doing, Joe Debris is an economist who has worked on the economies of developing nations. So we've recruited him to work on the economics of College Promise here, looking at a number of potential scenarios, looking at a scenario that would only include first-year students, only include second-year students, only include students that were going into healthcare, etc. We're just picking out some possibilities and saying, okay, what would that look like in terms of dollars needed? So that's where we are at this point. One of the questions that has come up is, I should say that Fred Nugent, who is a foundation board member, he has presented the proposal for this exploration to the foundation board, and they have approved going ahead with this exploration. One of the questions that's come up, and I think has not fully been, well, it hasn't been resolved in terms of, I think, discussed in any detail, is who in fact would make the final decision about whether to go ahead with such a program. All we're doing at this point is exploring it. What we hope to do is present some data to the board, to the foundation. We are thinking that the foundation probably would be the foundation board would probably be the board to say, yes, we want to go ahead with that. But we haven't discussed it here on the governing board, and we may need to do that at some point. There's no need for us to rush to do that. We're going ahead with our research, and we will do that. And probably sometime in January, maybe in late January, we will be ready to provide some sort of preliminary report on what we have found out.
Great.
There may have also been a question raised about should we be doing this in conjunction with other community colleges in the state. At the moment, we are thinking that we would like to pursue it solo. And our thinking is simply both the political and economic atmosphere at the state level does not appear to be conducive to sort of financing a broad program. So we're thinking we would be solo, and we'd certainly be willing to share any of our information with other community colleges in the state. But again, at this point, we're thinking it's primarily a solo activity.
Thank you.
So,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, one other item. I just wanted to mention to Dr. Cervantes that a couple of board meetings ago, as Randy was saying his goodbyes, I asked that on the January meeting, we have a report from the, I call them the scheduling committee.
The class schedule?
The class scheduling.
Yeah, Margaret.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Good. What's the right term for that? The scheduling task force. The point being, obviously, to try to consolidate or make as convenient as possible our class scheduling so that we keep students in Santa Fe Community College who might otherwise have to drop out because they can't meet the scheduling difficulties. So it's a great undertaking, and we're supposed to have some super duper software. Is that software working? Okay, but it's working and you're getting training now. Okay, that's good. You're beginning. Oh, okay. So, great. Okay, that'll be January. Okay, so I just wanted to, since that was before your
Good.
tenure.
Yeah, thanks for telling me.
Great, okay. Now can we have a motion to go into, oh, I'm sorry.
I just
One
have
more
one
thing.
last
Yes, one more thing.
part
I really
of
want
my.
to get into that.
I know. One last part of the President's report. The Office of Marketing and Public Relations worked with me, and they did a fabulous job in creating a holiday card that we'll be sending out beginning tomorrow to our friends, colleagues, staff, community members, and it's here for you to see.
Oh.
Does it say send money?
That really came out good. Did you know that? Very nice. You
very
like
nice.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah, isn't that
that's
nice?
great,
Isn't that
great.
nice? They did a fabulous job.
Yes, good.
Where does
Thank
the
you.
snow in the picture come from?
It was imported from Minnesota.
You brought it with you, thank you.
Right, get some more. Okay, now can we have a motion to go into closed session for the purposes listed on here?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday.